you guys on mute so we don't pick up all that background noise. And I hope Luis Moreno can get in. Yeah, maybe he went out and went in. Okay, so yeah, let's find a comfortable posture. A posture you can maintain for hopefully 25, 26 minutes. Oh, one thing I want to do is put on my timer. And let's start off arriving. That is arriving to this present moment. Arriving into the here and the now. Using our bodies. This form that we've been given in this lifetime. So maybe why don't we start with a little body scan, starting this time with the feet. So let's start by connecting our awareness, our attention to the area of our feet. Feeling our feet. Experiencing or knowing our feet. So there should be some sensation where the feet are making contact with the floor. Or if you're lucky enough to have a zabuton, maybe on the blanket, the zabuton. Just feeling any sensation that might be present in the feet. Could be some tickling, maybe some pressure. And then moving up into the legs, feeling the lower leg, maybe the knees, the upper legs. And if there's not sensation or very little, then just noticing the absence or lack of sensation and what that feels like. Now let's go to the sit bones, part of the buttocks that's making contact with the chair or the cushion or the pillow or the couch. Maybe feeling the weight of the body there. The sit bones making contact. Then moving up into the torso of the body, the front torso, the chest, the belly, the back torso, the shoulder blades, the lower back, the lumbar. Maybe in the back body there's some tension or pressure. Maybe just using our awareness to relax the back, relax the shoulders, allowing the arms to just hang. And then feeling the arms, feeling their weight, feeling the hands. Maybe the hands are touching the knees or each other in your lap, just feeling that. We're not trying to do anything or find out anything or figure out anything. Just unifying or connecting the mind to the body. Using sensations in the body. And now coming to the head. Feeling the head, feeling the face. Noticing if there's any tension in the face. Maybe around the eyes or the forehead. Just allowing them to relax. In the jaw, if there's any tension in the jaw, just maybe give it a little wiggle. Let it relax. And you can use the body as an anchor at any time if your mind wanders. Or when it wanders. It will wander, of course. When it wanders, you can use the body as an anchor, as a home base. Or we often say we can use the posture, the body's posture. But meanwhile, let's find the breath. So maybe there's sensation in the belly, sensation of movement of the breath, maybe in the chest, or in the area of the nostrils. And so it's customary to choose a spot where you can feel the breath very easily and very comfortably, where there's almost a pleasant feeling tone, like we talked about last week, where the sensation of breathing is rather pleasant. And just let that be your home base, your anchor. Unless you can't find anything pleasant about the breath, then you've got the body, as we talked about, or you can also use sounds, listening, hearing. So you have three options, really. Home bases. And when the mind wanders, we just try to let the thoughts go like clouds passing in the sky or leaves passing on a river. So let them go and then bring the attention back to your anchor, to your chosen anchor, the breath, the body, or sounds. And you can also use a full body awareness of the breath, or that is of the body breathing. So you kind of get 2 for 1 almost. You can follow the breath and feel the body. And that is also can be a very pleasant anchor and something personally I like very much. So we just practice coming back, coming back, coming back to the present moment with curiosity, with kindness, with allowing, permiso. And if you notice a little irritation, a little frustration, a little expectation, no pasa nada. Just try to let those go as well. They're just like thoughts. They're just phenomena that arise. Just let them go. Come back to your anchor. Feeling, experiencing, knowing your anchor. Knowing the breath, knowing the body, knowing sounds. If you have a practice of labeling your experience or would like to try that, see if it's supportive, you can use labels or names to identify your experience, such as inhaling, exhaling, inhaling, exhaling. And when the mind is lost in thought or thinking, when we realize this, we could simply say thinking, thinking. And then as we return to our anchor, returning, returning, inhaling, exhaling. If you are experiencing a lot of thought, if the mind is obsessing, for instance, about something and can't seem to let go, you can try to find any sensation in the body that might be connected to that thought, those obsessions. So maybe in the body will be some fear or tension or contraction, or maybe even if it's a fantasy that we can't let go of, there might be feelings of excitement in the body. Whatever it might be, maybe just seeing if you can connect to whatever might be in the body and feel it, know it, experience it, and see if that doesn't loosen up the obsession, the thinking, at least for a bit. So for these last few minutes, I invite you, if you're willing, to allow your mind to wander. That is, allow your attention to wander to whatever it finds most interesting, most attractive. And whatever it lands on, just be aware of that. It might be sounds, it might be some pain in the body, might be some pleasant sensation in the body, or it could still be the breath. Whatever it is, just allowing it to move around as it wants and then being aware of where it goes and where it lands. And then noticing how things just arise, stay a little while, and then pass away. And now for these final couple moments, let's return to the body. No matter where your attention was, let's reinfuse the body with awareness. So imagine you can fill your entire body with consciousness, with awareness, with attention, right to the level of your skin. Noticing any sensation in the body, any movement, energy flows, pain, pleasure, whatever it might be, just feeling it all at once. It's like we can bathe our physical form with loving awareness, with kind, loving awareness, holding ourselves in this way. Then imagine extending the awareness a little beyond the skin into the energy field. Maybe there's some tickling, hormigueos, cosquilleos at the level of the skin and just beyond. And then imagine you can extend your awareness to include everybody in our Sangha today, meditating together. And keeping in mind that this is not a selfish practice. That is, it's not just so we can be calmer or bliss out or ignore our problems or whatever. It's a practice for the benefit of all beings. And keep that in mind, because when we're calmer, when we're happier, we are going to be better citizens of this world for sure, and others will benefit. And when you hear the sound of the bell, just notice whatever arises, any thought, like, oh, too soon, or oh, finally, or maybe feeling in the body, whatever it might be. Thank you very much for meditating with us. It's not quite the same if we were all under the same roof, but I definitely find it supportive. In fact, I think I'm at least doing one a day with other groups, if not more. The heat has come to the desert now, so if we want to do any exercise outside, which is possible because there's lots of space, we have to do it in the morning. So I can't, or I don't join the Spanish groups as much because I'm usually trying to shake my body a little bit in the morning. But usually in the afternoon, I get to practice with a lot of the teachers I used to practice with in person here in California, which has been great though. I've just really been connected to the Dharma in a way that I've really felt nourished by it. And as a result, I get ideas, that I think could be helpful, and I'd like to pass them on. So I see there's a chat. I want to make sure that's not a pregunta of any kind. Oh, that's a thanks. Okay, you're welcome. So I thought I would just launch into a little Dharma talk. And then after that, we can have some breakout rooms or, some sharing and maybe time for questions. So there's one teacher in San Francisco or in California who I have been following for 12 years. And I consider him kind of my first real teacher. His name is Eugene Cash. He's also a bicyclist and we've got a few things in common. But he said something this week that I really resonated with. And he was also, for those of you who remember Bhikkhu Analayo, some of you maybe have even been a follower of Bhikkhu Analayo. He's a monk who is a Pali scholar, and he also speaks fluent Spanish. And we went to a retreat in Spain of his last year. It was wonderful. And Eugene Cash is also a big fan of Bhikkhu Analayo. So he quotes Bhikkhu Analayo a lot. And what he said is, he said that this process, this path, this camino that we're on, which we say is a path to awakening, right? The word Buddha means the awakened one. So this is what we're striving for, we're hoping for, to be fully awake. The way Eugene put it is, he said, we could also maybe say that we want to be fully mature. It's a process of maturing, right? And making more mature decisions and so forth. And I really resonated with that. It's almost like I kind of got that better than being awake. And I was joking with him that maybe instead of calling the Buddha, we call him the mature one. Instead of the awakened one, he's the mature one. And Eugene quoted Analayo, who quoted a couple other teachers, of how this path is in a way, it's putting on a new pair of glasses, right? It's having a new perspective. And he said this with respect to the fourth of the four foundations of mindfulness. So I'm going to share screen, and I put together a slideshow on Google Drive, and so we'll see if I'll be able to share it with you. It's very basic, but I think it might be kind of helpful. So I'm going to push share screen. And where is my Satipatthana? Uh-oh. Hold on just 1 second. It seems to have disappeared. Oh, I see. That's so funny how if it's just on. So how do I
close this and then reopen it?
And so I gotta go down to share. So let's try again. Share. There it is. Okay. So Ignacio, I can see you in the window here. Can you see the Satipatthana Sutta slide? Okay, good. All right. So the Satipatthana is the four foundations of mindfulness, right? And this is basically what we study in the West. Even if you were to take a mindfulness course, like the mindfulness-based stress reduction, they basically follow the Buddhist teaching of the Satipatthana. And sutta means discourse. So my next slide. Okay, so these are the four foundations of mindfulness, which we've been talking a little bit off and on. The first one is the mindfulness of the body. And this is what we do generally when we meditate, right? As we are aware of the body, we're aware of the breath, which is within the body. Mindfulness of feelings or feeling tone, which I can't remember if we talked about it last Sunday or Thursday, but that's knowing whether it's pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Mindfulness of mind or thoughts, feelings, emotions, beliefs, anything having to do with the mind, any construct. And then the last one, the fourth one, is mindfulness of dhammas or phenomena. Dhammas. So now within the last one, mindfulness of Dhamma, there are lists of other Buddhist teachings. There's the 5 hindrances and the 5 aggregates and the sense doors, 7 factors of awakening, and probably the most important teaching of the Buddha, the 4 noble truths. And so when this guy said that we want to put on new pairs of glasses, or that this is a path with a new perspective, new pairs of glasses, he's talking about seeing the world through these lists. That this is essentially this fourth foundation of mindfulness, is seeing the world through the lens of the hindrances, the aggregates, the 7 factors of awakening, and the 4 noble truths. So what are the Four Noble Truths? We've talked about this many times, right? The first noble truth is there is suffering. Dukkha, we call it in Pali, right? That life is not always satisfying. In fact, a lot of the time it is not satisfying at all, right? Dukkha. Second noble truth is that there is a cause of dukkha. The arising of dukkha is what we want to know. There's a cause, and the cause is tanha, or craving. Third noble truth is that there is an end or a cessation of dukkha. And this is when we let go of tanha, when we let go of craving. And then there is a path. There is a camino, right, that leads us to the end of suffering, that leads us to maturing. And this is our noble eightfold path. And, they're all one is within the other. It's so, I don't know whether it was done like this to remember it, because for hundreds of years it was an oral tradition. It wasn't even written down, or whether because indeed, this is a very good argument could be made, because they are all interconnected. One leads to the other, and the other is within the other. So our noble eightfold path, we have right view or right understanding, right comprehension, right intention or resolve, right speech, right actions, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. Now, what's interesting, within right mindfulness, you would go right back to the four foundations of mindfulness, right? But within the fourth foundations of mindfulness is the fourth foundation, which includes Four Noble Truths, which includes the path, which includes mindfulness, which brings us back to the Satipatthana. And they're all like feeding each other, supporting each other. Now, where I wanted to take it a little bit more, though, today is this first one, right view, or right comprehension, right understanding. So the Buddha taught that there are two types of right view. One, the first one is our mundane right view, the law of karma. Or in Pali, it's actually kamma. Karma is Sanskrit. And then the superior right view, the right view that can lead us to the cessation of suffering, is the Four Noble Truths, and understanding the Four Noble Truths, understanding suffering. And so it brings us right back to the beginning again. So I'll stop that so I can see your faces. So I thought I would just talk for a few minutes about this right view, this perspective, because to me it is so important, right? First of all, with right view, it's directional, in the sense that if we kind of know where we're going, because we can see relatively clearly, we'll be on the path, and then we'll be going in the right direction. It's like, even if we bump along, like I kind of imagine the Noble Eightfold Path as being a very wide path. Like here in Spain too, we have what are called fire trails, right? In the forest, and here in the desert, they have fire trails. And they're dug by large machines, and they're quite wide, so that a fire truck could actually go up there if they needed to. So they're very wide. And so we could be on that path, let's say we're taking a hike, but we have lots of room where we can kind of wander this way or that, and we're not going to fall off the path, right? Versus, say, a very narrow one where you could easily one step and you could be off the path. And I sort of see this is just my interpretation, but I sort of see the Noble Eightfold Path, this Camino, as being very wide. And there's lots of room to maneuver, and you can even make some mistakes, and you still won't fall off the path. But with right view, we're at least going in the right direction, right? in this law of karma, which is fundamental to Buddhism. And the reason it's mundane is because it has to do with our lives now, where we want to do wholesome acts so that we can have wholesome consequences, so we can generate good karma. And this is fundamental. In the Buddhist philosophy, which is slightly different than Hindu philosophy and maybe others, karma is simply action, and it's action. And when there's action, there are consequences. This is the law. This is what we want to remember. And so when we do wholesome acts, there should be wholesome consequences according to this law. And this helps us in this lifetime, right? And the superior one is the Four Noble Truths, is truly understanding our suffering, and that there's a cause of suffering, which is this craving we talked about, and there can be an end to suffering. And then it brings us back again to the Eightfold Path, and we kind of do it again. And so going back to Eugene and Analio, it's being like immersed, you might say, in this path, or immersed in the teachings, all these lists, and I've seen this in my own life where I just kind of keep going over them and over them and over again. And it's changing my conditioning. It's changing how I see the world. And it's allowing me to also see where I am still immature. I just finished reading Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now. I read it in Spanish to try to maintain my Spanish. Beautiful book. And I highly recommend it if you haven't read it. It's basically Buddhism without saying it's Buddhism. And he talks about choice. And he mentions in the book, he says, when we are unconscious, we basically have no choice. We just do things automatically, right? But if we're aware, if we're conscious, then we might have a little bit of choice. He even says we have choice. In Buddhism, we have a little bit of choice. We're still constrained by our condition. But for me, the more I've been on this path, the more I have studied Buddhism, the more I have practiced meditation, the more I have imparted it. I mean, this is such a wonderful practice for me because I want to be careful. I don't want to, and every week I make a mistake, and now they're taped and I'm like, oh my God, I made a mistake. But it keeps me so close to the Dharma. And I see it modifies how I see the world. I now see the world with more compassion, I have to admit. My daughter was even kind of surprised that I didn't think that, Donald Trump is a worse president than George Bush was. She grew up, she lived at home when I was an activist against George Bush. I just hated him or whatever, fought against him, didn't like the war in Iraq, etc. And it isn't that I think that Trump is better or worse. It's just with my practice, I have a lot more space for these things. I'm not so agitated. I'm not so angry. I was mad as hell during the early 2000s. I mean, just besides myself. And so, one of my teachers, David Rico, says that even a lifetime of practice, we may only change 20 or 30%, right? So it's not, I had a long list of what we might call character defects. I had a long list of things I wanted to change. They're still there. Like another personal example is the architect for Saladana, the one who has helped me try to get a license for it and so forth. He sent me an invoice, a fractura, for 1,000 euros. I don't want to pay it. And I've been fighting with myself for, I think, 4 weeks now. This is old pattern stuff. This is Tacaño Jim, who's cheap as hell, tight as hell. this is a immature way of thinking, right? There's not enough, or this person is taking advantage of me. You know, these are ways of thinking that are not of a mature person. They're more like of a child. But I know they still exist in my brain. They still habitate somewhere in this head. And so I'm in, but at least I'm aware. I mean, before I would have just told the guy to take a hike, and not on that Camino, you know, some other road. Yeah. So this is kind of my, you know, and this is my mini Trump too. And I know I have a mini Trump who's a constant salesman, right? So I'm trying to sell you on the beauty of this wonderful path, the Dhamma, and to keep, you know, I'm just going to keep, I see our group keeps shrinking each week. So maybe it's not exactly working, but I'm going to keep bringing up the Dhamma. I'm just going to keep bringing up the lists because I think they're so helpful. You know, when we can see things through this lens, I do think, at least in my experience, I am happier. I am happier. I am much more equanimous, and I still slip and slide. You know, maybe I even fall off that path daily, but not too far off. Yeah, I think. Oh, you know what? There was one little thing I want. Hold on, just one little thing I wanted to mention from Joseph Goldstein's book on mindfulness, which is really the Bible. And again, because of how all the lists are within the lists are within the list, you get his mindfulness book, and then within that are the Four Noble Truths, are the Noble Eightfold Paths, are the Seven Factors of Awakening. It's all in that book on mindfulness because all that information is there. But I thought this was interesting. He talked about the distortions, right? The things we can't see clearly that the Buddha specifically mentioned. Okay, there's 3 distortions. And we talk about this often when we practice. One of the distortions is we see things as permanent when they are impermanent, right? We see things as satisfying when in fact they're unsatisfying. And this is mainly or often having to do with permanence too, in that it might be satisfying for a moment, like that piece of chocolate can be satisfying for a few seconds, but if you eat enough of it, it no longer is satisfying, right? So we see things that are unsatisfying as being satisfying. This is another distortion. We see things as being self when they're not self, when they don't have an inherent self, but we give them this power like they have a self. And then the last one, which we usually don't talk about, and it is not considered one of the 3 characteristics, but I rather like this one. We see things as beautiful when in fact they're not really beautiful. And this process of seeing clearly with right view, this first of the factors, the 8 factors in the Noble Eightfold Path, is about having right view, which includes to see things as they are, impermanent, unsatisfying, duradero in terms of long-term, and not self, not personal. I like the way we could say just unsatisfying. No, wait, first one's impermanent, unsatisfying, impersonal. Those are the 3 characteristics. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Does anybody have any questions, or does anybody have a urge to share at the larger group? Just you can raise your hand this way. I think we have 2 pages. I think I can see just about everybody, or you can use the mechanical levantar la mano. Yes, Fernando. I will unmute you. Please.
Hey, hello everyone. Hey, and Anna. I had a question about the Eightfold Path. I had it last week actually, but I forgot to ask it. So you said some of them are easy, like the livelihood one. Some of them are a bit more simple. which ones do you find personally are the hardest, either to live by or to understand how to live by?
Yeah, well, I would say in terms of my regular life, and Anna Monica I'd like her to answer too, because she may have a different answer, but mine is right speech. That one still challenges me because the stuff that comes out of my mouth sometimes is not wise. It is not helpful. It's not wholesome. So that one I probably struggle with the most in terms of my daily life. Now the last one is right samadhi, concentration. I'm a space cadet, so that one I also, to get concentrated does take a little bit of, well, it takes a lot of work. And some people argue that right samadhi might even mean full absorption, which I've never experienced. But I find that much less important. If I can be mindful, that's, I think, good enough. But the right speech sometimes, that one is difficult. In terms of understanding, the right view, the first one we talked about, that one can trip people up sometimes. And in the second one, which is right thought, or right intention. But that's my answer. Anna Monica, you want to say what your...
For me, which is the toxin one?
What?
Toxins, poisons?
The 3 poisons?
No, when you ingest poisons, alcohol, things like that.
Oh, that would be
Maybe
right. That would be action, right? Right, action.
Yeah, I guess there's one that I'm being reminded of that isn't specifically Eightfold Path, but like Thich Nhat Hanh talks about not taking in anything that clouds the mind in terms of intoxicants or even information, just the foods, the things that affect our being. And I'm pretty careful with my diet, and sugar has often come up as something that is not alcohol, is not drugs, but affects me neurologically. Like I can feel it immediately after a bite of something sweet. And I've always kind of wondered, that feels kind of borderline because I'm aware of the difference it makes in my body. And then also information, the kind of information we take in as food. Sometimes, I don't know, Netflix at night, it seems like, okay, that's not particularly wholesome, and a place where there can be more room for a wholesome choice. So those 2 things, I think, are things that where I am with my practice are the next level of improvement when I'm able to be more skillful. And sometimes I am, and sometimes I'm not, and that's okay.
Yeah, what she was referring to are in the 3 sila, or ethical ones, which are right speech, right livelihood, and right action. And that's where you'll find also the 5 precepts that we will take like when we're on retreat, which includes non-harming ourselves and others and so forth. Yeah.
And not taking in intoxicants.
Yeah, not using our sexuality in a way that could harm, not killing, not robbing, those types of things are in that group of 3, which I also slip and slide on all those, but it's the right speech where I think I have the most difficulty.
That's great. Thanks for sharing. It's all
Thank
really...
you. Thank you, Fernando. We have a wonderful question from Diana about right or wise effort. We have about 15 minutes. Yeah, so there's time for that. So the question was about right effort. So I'll just real quickly go to share screen again. And then go to the Eightfold Path. So you can see it here as number 6, right or wise effort. And generally speaking, this one, it's in the practice group. It's one of the 3 that's in the practice group: right effort, right mindfulness, right samadhi, right concentration. But it does also apply to our regular lives. And it's basically I always get confused exactly what the order is, but I think it goes this way, where the first one is not to allow unwholesome states to arise. So this would be like mental states. Like, let's say that, well, I don't have to say, let's say, I do. I have resentful thoughts about Donald Trump. Okay, I'll just be honest. I have resentful thoughts about Donald Trump. But when I think about him, they're unwholesome. They agitate me, right? And then I'm more inclined to say things mean to Anna Monica or whatever. So the first one is to, when there's unwholesome states that haven't arisen, to keep them from arising, to keep them down, right? Don't think them. Don't think them. And if a negative thought arises, right, an unwholesome state arises, which would be, let's say, the thought, then to let it go. Okay, so that's the first two. Keep them down when they're down, let them go when they arise. And then on the flip side, to cultivate the wholesome states that have arisen. So let's say I'm thinking compassionate things about Donald Trump, or that might be unrealistic, but let's say I'm thinking compassionate things about my children or about you guys or whatever. I'm thinking loving, I'm practicing loving kindness. This is a wholesome state. I want to maintain it. I want to keep it up. And if it hasn't arisen, I want to cultivate it. I want to get it to arise. Okay, so those are the 4 types of right efforts that are included in this noble truth, or this factor, 6th factor. So I hope that explained that. And metta, which we're going to do here in a minute, is one of the best wholesome practices that we could do, because we know how to do it, right? We know how to do the phrases, and it is considered right effort. Okay, any more?
Thank you very much.
I thought I heard something, but maybe Fernando, no? See. Okay, so why don't, unless there's a big objection, you can go like this, but I thought, why don't we do the metta now, and then we'll do the small groups. I will organize them. And if you don't want to do small groups, then you can, either stay on the call or leave, but I'll stay on as long as there's somebody who wants to. Does that sound okay? So we'll do metta first and then the small groups? Okay, that seems great. Perfect. Okay. So yeah, find a comfortable posture. And with metta, or loving kindness, well-wishing, goodwill, having a comfortable posture is very important, because we really want to open up the heart. We don't want any hindrances. We don't want any obstructions, obstaculos to opening the heart. In fact, I often put my hand around my heart so I can really feel that area. And so for those who haven't practiced this, we're going to offer wishes or phrases to ourselves and others. And so I'm going to mention some phrases out loud, and then you can, you could say them out loud or mentally. Either way is fine, I guess. So we saw one that started with healthy, and generally I don't use that one when I lead it on these calls, but I'm going to start with that one. I rather like it. So may I be healthy. We'll start off with I. For some people, I is a little hard, but let's try to do that. Start off with I. May I be healthy. May I be happy. May I be safe. May I be peaceful. So now let's try our whole group here. We'll use we. Try to imagine that you're sending this this loving kindness, this goodwill radiating out, including everybody here on our call in our Sangha. May we be healthy. May we be happy. May we be safe. May we be peaceful. And now let's take a step into the difficult and try to imagine somebody right now in our life who is giving us a little bit of a headache, right? Maybe they hurt our feelings, we have a little resentment to them, or maybe they're just not following the suggestions around shelter in place, or just they're kind of getting on our nerves, right? But let's imagine them here in front of us, and let's send them these good wishes. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you be safe. May you be peaceful. And lastly, we'll do all beings. All beings without exception, whether they have 2 legs or 1,000 legs, live on this planet or any other. Just let it radiate out from our bodies and our mind and our heart. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings be peaceful. And finally, to dedicate the merit of our time together, the merit of our practice, of the teachings, of our Buddha nature, of our Sangha. Share this, dedicate this to the benefit of all beings. May all beings be happy and peaceful, healthy and strong, safe and protected. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, free from war and violence and discrimination, and free from coronavirus. May all beings find their path and get on this path and stay on this path that leads to the end of suffering, that leads to freedom. And a little shout out for all of those on the front lines of this epidemic, this pandemic. May they all be safe. May they all be protected. Okay, so I'm going to take us all off of mute. Say hi, and then set up some groups, and who's ever still around, we can do small groups. Kind of the same format though, with like 3 people, 2 minutes each person sharing, and trying to listen as mindfully as we can on Zoom. But yeah, if you want to say hi now, there's a voice or someone you've seen. Jorge, how are you? Michael. Laura, okay.
Everyone.
Hi, David. Good to see you all. Nice to see familiar faces. Okay, so first I think I'm going to stop live streaming on YouTube.